Welcome to today's episode of NZX Direct on Argosy Property Limited. I'm Stephen Friendlich, Head of IR and Corporate Communications. We're going to be doing a Q&A with two of Argosy's staff, Sustainability Head of Satish Bana and Donovan Wick, Project Manager. We're going to be covering a little bit about Argosy's sustainability journey over the last decade or so and some of its achievements. But before we get into that, a quick dive into Argosy. We're obviously a listed property company that's been around for over 20 years, portfolio of just over 2 billion across 50 properties. We're a diversified vehicle, obviously across office, industrial and large format retail. Around half of our property portfolio is in industrial and about a third are in green buildings. Obviously green buildings are those that are either got Green Star rated certification or Neighbours NZ ratings around the energy efficiency. We've obviously had a decade or so into that green journey. We've got over 14 green buildings and we've got something like 30 or 35 awards in relation to those buildings, which is probably a good segue, Satish, to talk about our most recent achievement, which is winning the Supreme Award at the recent Property Council New Zealand Awards for 8 Willis Street, which was Argosy's first 6 Green Star commercial building and Wellington's first as well. So maybe over to you firstly, what was the catalyst for this development?
Well, look, the catalyst really was the Kaikoura earthquake that involved, after that event, Wellington City Council yellow stickered the building, and that building suffered the least amount of cosmetic damage out of all our buildings. But we had to deal with that, and at the same time it allowed us to review the site and the neighbouring site being 8 Willis Street. Yeah. And what we did was it allowed us, by redeveloping it and working with the Historic Places Trust, they allowed us to demolish a category listed heritage building, yeah. But we actually restored the facade of that building back to what it was back in the 1900s.
Wow. That sounds like there's a lot of challenges, not just that. So, I mean, the project took around I think it was about 2.5 years to get through. So what were some of the challenges in this development, Donovan?
Yeah, for a project of this size and nature, you always anticipate that there will be challenges. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you just don't know what those challenges will be. And to surpass those items and to develop great solutions, you need an excellent professional consultant team and contractor behind you, as well as stakeholders. Unfortunately, in this instance, we had all of those team members working together to work through some of the challenges that we faced. Few key challenges that I can recall is obviously to fund the heritage restoration that Satish mentioned, and as well as to make a higher and better use of the existing site. We worked through design that added a total of 9,500 square meters of additional rentable area, which ultimately brought the overall building footprint up to 18,700 square meters.
So,
yeah. But to do that, the next challenge is it's a central city site. So for those not familiar with the location, it's Lambton Quay and 8 Willis, one of the biggest pedestrianized zones in Wellington. It's got the main bus thoroughfare through the central city. The building's surrounded on 3 sides by existing properties not owned by Argosy. And so it was quite a challenge that McKeefell had to work through to enable us to build, construct the development there on site without disrupting bus service, etc. Another memorable challenge was the central atrium that you'd be aware of in the center core there of 8 Willis, built in the, what we had to do was cut penetrations through all the existing 1980s concrete floor structure, which was a challenge in itself because ultimately you had to sequence the work so that you didn't destabilize the building and cause it to fall over. And then a final challenge to just mention is all developments through 2020 to 2022 faced COVID and supply chain issues. I remember watching the seismic dampers bob around in the Pacific Ocean for 2 months as it went between Australia and Southeast Asia until it finally came to New Zealand. So yeah, some good challenges, but we overall got through those.
Yeah, cool. Actually, speaking of dampers, innovation is clearly a big part of this project. It's a big part of why this project got the Supreme Award. So, you know, what were a couple of the kind of key kind of features or innovation kind of elements in your mind?
Look, the seismic solution is really advanced. Becca had come out with a program to simulate earthquakes, and basically they run a whole lot of different scenarios, and the building has these dampers to absorb earthquake energy. And normally a building of this size would have 45 dampers. It would have a whole lot of K bracing in it, which is quite intrusive on the building and on the occupants. Through this modelling, it took months to do. They reduced that to 12 dampers, and that's amazing.
How heavy are these things?
Tons. They're about, and the size of them is quite substantial. You'll see them in the photos.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it gives the feeling of being safe because people can see them.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about this building is people like being in the building, and that's really important. The other thing about the building is it also has a lot of technology and air conditioning to be energy efficient. So the building has the application of technology in a different way to the norm. So we do simultaneous heating and cooling, and we use full pipe reverse cycle heat pump chillers, which means we get free hot water when we produce cold water and vice versa. They're two of the big things. We have a data analytics program with AI, which helps us commission and run the building, and that runs every 15 minutes. So there's quite a bit behind the scenes of the building that run.
So I guess then onto the sustainability and green elements of it. So why did we kind of target Green Star rating for this?
Oh, look, our ethos is to minimise our impact on the environment, and in this project we reuse the building structure. That was one form, so we're not demolishing a building completely and rebuilding it. We also have the goal to have 50% of the portfolio green by 2030, and this put us on track for that. The project also was one of the first projects to get 10 innovation points under Green Star.
Wow.
And the other key element was we had a sustainability committee with the tenant, and we went through and we looked at holistically what do we want out of the building for not just the building but for the people in the building, and we categorised and prioritised those sustainability initiatives to maximise that feel.
So were we always targeting a 6 Green Star for this project, or did it start lower and then go up? Or?
We originally were contracted to deliver a 5-star building, but we all had aspirations jointly to be 6 stars, and the sustainability committee was formed to get us to 6 stars.
Right. And so what are there any particular features that kind of help the occupants of the buildings from a Green Star perspective?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we've had great feedback from all the tenants and the occupants. In the challenging time of getting people to return to work and return to the office, we're getting feedback that more staff are quite happy to come back to the office for reasons of we've used, for instance, active chilled beams, which eliminate the drafts that you get with air conditioning mechanical systems blowing down your back. We've designed 8 Willis for 150% fresh air capacity over code, which means that you're getting constant air changes, so you're getting fresh natural air, and you're expelling kind of all those dirty bugs and smells and odors and whatnot that one might experience. We provided a brilliant end-of-trip facility, which is quite popular with the staff. And when you walk into the bike park area, we're already oversubscribed as far as numbers of bikes, etc. We've selected lighting features, LED lights with daylight harvesting and sensors that adjust the light level, so it's quite comfortable. But then also in parts of the building where it's a bit darker and removed from natural light, we've added circadian lighting, which mimics the flow of natural light over the course of a day. So that's just a flavor of what's there. But.
So clearly this has been our most complex kind of project to date. So I guess just thinking about wrapping up, what would be the best feature of the building in your mind?
Oh, best feature in my mind was actually the process that myself, Satish, the consultant team, contractors, and stakeholders worked through. I'm thinking back to the middle of the project, we kind of understood what we were doing, but now we're a few years removed. We've seen the building in operation, and it's so pleasing to see how those features have come together and actually exceeded at least my expectations.
Satish?
Look, for me, it's about delivering a productive working environment that works. What we set out to do, we've achieved it. We've got really happy occupants. The other thing is Department of Statistics, they were in an earthquake-prone, or their building was demolished in Kaikoura. They've been nomads around Wellington, and now they've got a home again. And the building's adapted to loading it up with different departments as well. So overall, we've given versatility, we've got a sustainable asset, we've taken a non-green couple of buildings off the market and replaced them with green. And it's a good carbon story as well.
Cool. And just to wrap up, just given that we've finished with the Olympics, Start with you, Donovan. Highlight for you from the games?
Highlight has to be
Zealand?
how New Zealand's performed overall as
Yeah.
far as per population
Yeah.
compared to other countries like
Number
my mother
one.
country of America. New
Yeah.
Zealand's kicked
We're kicking
America's backside. So yeah, let's do it.
Sati?
Oh, look, I have to say, I was looking at the breakdancing, and I'm glad New Zealand didn't enter it after watching Australia.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So we'll just stay where we are.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be the GOAT, Lisa Carrington. What a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks, guys. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, cheers.
Hi, I'm Justin Birch, and this is Christina Green from ArborGen. We're a company based in the U.S. but traded on the New Zealand Stock Exchange. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about us and our goals and how we feel our company is moving forward to help create sustainable forestry to help our customers in the world. So a little bit about us is that we are a company based out of the U.S. and the eastern U.S. We have nurseries and operations all through the southeastern U.S. And also in Brazil. Brazil has been an exciting new market for us to grow into and to build into over the last 10, 20 years there. And so our company, a little bit about us. We produce globally almost 400 million seedlings a year. We do a lot in loblolly pine. Loblolly pine in the U.S. is one of the biggest producers, not only of pulp and paper, but building materials. And so it's really a unique opportunity for the U.S. to continue to grow that and have that opportunity and that in-house building material that we love because it's a real piece of sequestering carbon. It holds that carbon in it and is a renewable material, and so we believe a real positive factor for use in helping combat climate change. In the U.S., we sell loblolly pine, we sell longleaf pine, which is another variety, as well as different deciduous hardwood trees. All of those can be used, and our customers use them in building up good sustainable forests and for their reforest and afforestation needs. So they, some of them are building and just planting forests to build up. Some are reforesting after a harvest and continuing that renewable cycle. In Brazil, we sell also some loblolly pine, some of the same genetics that we've used in the U.S., and as well as eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is a great, fast-growing tree that now Brazil is the key market of growing hardwood pulp in the entire world, as it has been very an efficient growing season there. Those trees are tremendous and grow on a 6-year harvest cycle. They grow hundreds of feet in the year within 6 years. And both of these locations, we pride ourselves in having the best genetics around. We have spent years and years testing trees, looking at controlled breeding of trees to build them up and to help our customers have the fastest growing, the straightest, the most disease-resistant, drought-tolerant trees by helping them select the right trees and have those opportunities. In our business, we've continued to grow that basis of that genetics as a piece of the foundation of our business, and then also trying to serve our customers' needs as they have varying goals. Some of this can go from somebody who just wants to build a forest and preserve hunting land for the future. Some are commercial people that would like to have harvests, and anywhere in between to carbon goals and building a sustainable forest that help them preserve land for the future. So we have a variety of customers. We greatly appreciate all of them, and we work from that. And if we step back and just say, how does our business work? We grow trees in a few different ways. So our loblolly pine, those come from cones. And so we actually use big lifts. We have orchards that are mature trees that we have tested, and we've proven out that they have good genetics. And so we go out into those orchards, we use lifts, and we go up there. And for our mass control pollinated product, we actually put bags over those cones and make sure so that they don't get pollinated by anything else other than a specific pollen from a specific father tree. So that helps us make sure that we get the best genetics. So we put a bag over the cones, we inject the pollen that we've harvested from certain specific other trees, and then we let that cone flower and develop over almost a year and a half. So it takes quite a bit of time, and we invest a lot of time and effort into that, letting it grow. And then we go back about 18 months later and we harvest those cones, break off all the other pieces of the cone, the kind of the waste, clean that out, and then we get something that looks like that behind us, the ultimate pine seed, which we then store, and that's divided by different areas. It grows in different areas with specific temperatures, specific disease resistance, specific characteristics, and so we have different seeds for many different locations. So it's a really interesting process, and then with that seed, we take that out to our nurseries. We have nurseries all over in the United States and the southeast United States. And we plant that seed. Either we plant it directly in the ground, or we plant it in these little plastic tubes where it grows in those, which we call containers. And so that grows for just about under a year. And then we harvest seedlings that are about yay high. And then those go to our customers, where they plant them directly into the ground and hopefully start building up their forests. In Brazil and eucalyptus, it's done slightly differently. They grow these hedges in these little trays, and they snip little cuttings off, and those can actually then be put into a plastic tube, watered, kept in good heat and sunlight as it's needed, and those will take root and build up the trees right out of that. So those are done by just snipping hedges by a specific genetic material, allowing that to root and grow. And then at the end, we similarly have a little small seedling about yay high that our customers can then go plant, and off to the races as those trees grow. We very much look at that term sustainable forestry. We're part of the solution, we feel, in global climate change, that we're producing a product that sequesters carbon, helps people to be able to create a renewable product that is very earth friendly, and we view very important to have, not only to have around us, have good thriving forests that helps build the ecosystems that are very necessary and positive, but even with the harvest, that it's a product that can be renewed and hold that carbon, and so it's very positive for the atmosphere and for our environment. So we believe very much in our mission to help create those thriving forests for the world. And right now we're doing that in the United States and Brazil.
Yeah, and if you look at our recent climate disclosure, you will see in there that we actually have a lot more opportunities than risk when you look to the future with climate change. So I think that's a huge positive for our business. I think it provides a lot of opportunities for us in the future with climate change. And so we really want to be part of that solution. We are not part of the problem, but hopefully in the future we can really bring those opportunities to the world as we see climate change. So,
on that note, we've partnered with some great organizations that are building up and working with carbon credits and being able to work through helping that program build up and be able to help people access those carbon credits through what we feel is a very positive way to build those carbon credits.
Yeah, so strategically, we're really looking towards growth in Brazil. So we're looking very opportunistic at various nurseries and places in Brazil that we can grow. And in the U.S., it's really about securing our base, but also looking at opportunistic M&A that we can do that will really help our U.S. business. And selling advanced genetics is really our platform. More so than most companies, we're very familiar with extreme weather. Extreme weather can impact our nurseries or orchards. When you look at our orchards, they are mature trees. If those trees get taken down, that can really hurt our genetic performance because that's where our genetics are. When you look at our nurseries, it's really around rainfall or hail damage that can do to these small trees that are just getting to grow. So there's two aspects that we deal with on an ongoing basis. The way we mitigate that is really about dispersion, so having it across multiple areas so that if Texas gets hit, we still have other areas that still have nurseries.
So it's a way that we really feel that we position ourselves for strength to mitigate against such things. And that's our excitement about our products. We are tree farmers. We love it. We love being out in the outdoors. We love being in thriving forests. And we love being and helping our customers get that excitement for something that takes a while to grow, but people have been around us and with us for decades to see these forests come to fruition. We've looked at other global markets, and I think if it hits the requirements of our return on capital for our investors, absolutely. We've looked at different locations, adjacent locations, specifically mainly in South America. ArborGen previously had had operations, in Australia and New Zealand, and that had been divested years ago. But I think we definitely look for opportunities where that model of high genetic performance, the best trees, and if we have a way to model to help roll that out in new areas, we definitely continue to look at that today. We, like anything else, ultimately our end customers are, if people are buying trees that end up going into lumber, to paper, to pulp, whatever it is. So there are some cycle. I mean, some of ours is, somewhat not cyclical dependent. For example, in Brazil, hardwood pulp is used for a lot of basic things like diapers and toiletries. So that's, needed in an up cycle or a down cycle. Lumber and timber obviously can be somewhat dependent on housing and the need for that. And so I think it can has some cyclicality to it, depending on the ultimate end use for it. Because if those trees aren't harvested, then typically there's not opportunities to replant. That being said, we continue to look for new markets so that we can be less cyclical dependent, and carbon is one of those, where there's no cyclicality need to plant more trees to sequester more carbon. And so that's one of the ways that we've tried to kind of remove some of that cyclicality out of the business.
Yeah, and when so trees actually absorb more carbon in the growing stages. So when trees hit a certain age, you actually, in order to continue to capture that carbon, you actually want to take those trees down and replant them, because it's really when they're growing that they really sequester carbon. And what we did see in 2020 was a huge impact related to people doing a lot of renovations and building because of COVID. And so that has actually delayed some of the lumber needs that we have now. And so we've kind of seen that downtrend because it was such an expansive growth in that 2020, 2021 time periods.
I think for us, it's really an industry that still has so much technological growth that compared to other agricultural areas, the improvement in genetics we have been showing that, but we now are being able to show our clients that it really works. We've got trees that have now been in, and you can really see the difference. It's not a hypothetical. And so being able to prove that out and show our clients how that we can really be a solution for them, I think that the overall worldwide economy and need for focus on combating climate change really puts us at the forefront of as a solution. And I think there's not a lot of companies that can claim to do that and be, right in there creating an active solution that has so many benefits, not only the products that are produced from wood and forest, but the beauty, the natural habitat, the impact on carbon. And so being part of that big solution, I think is really a positive thing. And we see it in our employees who are excited to be a part of the forestry industry.
Yes, for me, I've only been with the company a very short period of time, but my background is agriculture, and I've done a lot of turnaround and growth businesses in my past. And I'm super excited about where ArborGen is at strategically. There were some pretty tough years, and financially, when I looked at the company, they have a very good balance sheet. We're making all the right decisions, moving in the right direction. And certainly with the opportunities we see with climate change and our position in that, I think it's really, really exciting. I think we have a lot of growth.
Hi everyone, my name is Oliver Mander. I'm the Chief Executive for the New Zealand Shareholders Association. I guess the purpose here today is just to provide a little bit more insight about NZSA, what we do, how we achieve that, and how we can actually help all investors. So firstly, NZSA has been around for a while. It was started back in 2001 by the inimitable Bruce Shepherd. Many of you may remember Bruce with his Viking helmet, pitchforks turning up to annual meetings. Our style these days is a little bit different. We work constructively with all manner of stakeholders, the exchange, regulatory agencies, the FMA, companies themselves, of course, and really what we try to do is advocate on behalf of retail investors. So that advocacy comes about in many forms. It could be that individual investors have a specific issue they're looking to resolve, and I can work with companies and stakeholders that are at a really specific issue level to try to sort particular issues out. But it might also be that that there's some overall market issues that we try to look at as well, and that's really where the advocacy and the policy work that we do comes in. So we spend a lot of our time talking to people, talking to companies, making sure that they understand our expectations and the expectations of investors, both in terms of governance practice, disclosure standards, particular issues related to their performance as well. In terms of the platform that we have that helps us achieve that, we do try to be independent, we try to be credible, very much evidence-based. So we look at the data, we look at what the best practice around the world is telling us, and that's really how we assess and look at our policies as a whole. And we try to hold companies to account against those particular policies. So a key way that we help you protect your investments is by making sure that we can improve corporate governance across New Zealand. We're a big believer in that. We believe that in the long term, great governance leads to great performance. So we work with companies to ensure that their governance and disclosure standards do actually meet global best practice. We do, of course, have a voting service, a proxy voting service, and that means that any retail investor can nominate NZSA as their proxy. We have full coverage of the New Zealand exchange, as well as some coverage on other exchanges as well in New Zealand. But that means that your voice is not forgotten, that the voice of the retail investor is heard. As a retail investor in New Zealand, you can take some comfort that someone has gone through a set of materials, that they have looked at the information that's relevant to a particular issue, to a particular company, and has made an assessment about how the voting at that company should occur. That's really acting in the best interest, not just of the company, but actually for shareholders as well. So it's one of the few times, of course, that shareholders actually have some rights in terms of looking at the performance of their company. And directors are your agents as shareholders. We make sure that those directors are held to account. We hold a variety of events around the country. We have 7 branches stretching from Christchurch to Auckland and everything in between. There's about 50 or 60 odd events a year that we run, either on a national level or through our branch network. Those events will contain content that could include presentations directly from company CEOs or chairs, but could also include topic or education-based themes as well to help you as investors make better decisions around the investments. So in terms of NZSA's membership, our membership is actually relatively small. We'd love more members. We've got about 1,200 members all around New Zealand, and they receive each week a bucket load of content that comes from NZSA that relates specifically to the companies that we cover, our thoughts on those companies, and particular specific market issues that we might be concerned about. All of that is really useful information that comes out to you in a weekly or a fortnightly newsletter called The Briefing. And that's a really useful sort of resource that you can use to aid your investment decisions. But that doesn't mean that you need to be a member to take advantage of what we do. And in fact, our proxy service is available to everyone, whether you're a member or not. And that means that your voice is heard and can be represented. And we have about 17 or 18,000 in our proxy service. So we will work to support investor interest by working through particular issues that individual investors may have, but also looking at market issues overall as well. So we will want to make sure that the resolutions that are happening at a company's annual meeting, that they're in the interests of all investors, all shareholders. We want to make sure that retail investors are not disadvantaged when it comes to the conversation as against institutional investors. So we try to make sure we maintain that level playing field between all types of investors, regardless of how big or how small those investors may be. We do a lot of that through direct engagement with companies. We're a very active investor representative, and that leads to what we think that leads to better disclosure and actually better corporate governance in New Zealand in the long term. In fact, over the last 3 or 4 years, since we've been looking at how we measure our own work, we can see an improvement in what we call New Zealand's Corporate Governance Index. And that's how we look at the best practice components associated with governance. So when it comes to individual companies, one thing we're always really keen to ensure is that there's ongoing engagement with shareholders. The engagement certainly goes well beyond a shareholder meeting. And in fact, most investors these days, and we know this is just a symptom of a different problem, but actually a shareholder meeting is simply a marker on a longer journey of engagement with investors and with shareholders. And that's something that we really want to maintain, that the information that is relevant for investors to make decisions is out there, that companies and their directors and their managers are having meaningful conversations with all investors, not just institutions, but with retail investors as well. So when it comes to listed companies, I mean, one of the key challenges I think that faces public markets in New Zealand is that relationship between private and public capital. And certainly what we've seen in the last few years has been that sort of gentle movement towards creating a form of unconscious bias against public markets. So that has come about by a regulatory regime that is clearly biased against public capital markets. And actually one of the things that we're working really hard to do is to try to redress some of that balance, to try to create that level playing field between private and public capital in a way that reflects a more proportionate approach to how companies are regulated, whether they're listed or not. And one of the key mechanisms that we think, for example, is that the number of shareholders should form a key determinant of the level of disclosure that companies are required to achieve, whether they're listed or not. And therefore, actually, again, that works in favour of ensuring that investors are fully informed and aware and have some protection regardless of the listing environment. So one thing that we do find really interesting is if I, for example, happen to be lucky enough to, or have worked hard enough to create a major organisation within a New Zealand context, it's very easy to look at private capital as a solution, but ultimately, actually, I could get greater value as an owner by a listing on the NZX, because that simply reflects, with greater liquidity, with greater scrutiny, that also creates greater value. And certainly the valuation multiples on a retail market are much higher than those in a wholesale market. So to some extent, there is some opportunity around that. And it's actually how issuers and how existing owners can take advantage of market conditions to list at the optimum time. So if you're a relatively new investor, I think there's a range of information options out there for you. It's not just about the platform. You might choose to invest through Sharesies, or you might choose to use one of the more traditional DIY platforms like Jarden Direct or ASB. And that's a way to understand the market and the companies. And actually, simply by using one or more of those platforms, you can follow companies that you are interested in. You can understand how they relate to other companies on the exchange or their sector peers. And outside of New Zealand, you can understand how those companies relate to competitors, perhaps in the Australian market or in the US market. But I think the journey starts by actually putting a little bit of money in the game. If you have a little bit of skin in the game, even if it's only that sort of $5 a week, $10 a week, I think that goes a long way to actually helping you educate yourself about what's interesting in New Zealand's markets. To some extent, organisations like NZSA can take some of the hard work away for you. So if you don't want to read every company's 150-page annual report, you can take some comfort from knowing that NZSA does that for you and produces some assessments on the back of that research, as well as all the other information disclosures that occur. But actually having a watch list of companies and having to compare those companies day in, day out, or perhaps month in, month out, actually that's a really helpful exercise to go through, simply to understand the differences between different organisations and how the returns they create for you as an investor. Well, it's really easy to sign up as NZSA. Simply go to nzshareholders.co.nz and you'll see a Join Us button sitting on the very front page. Membership is $145 a year or $15 a month. It's really easy to sign up, and we'd certainly love to welcome you as members. The more members that we have, the more influence that we can carry across New Zealand's public markets.